Alright, you guys, so tonight I am foregoing making you guys sit through and cutting absolutely every last ingredient. So what I'm going to be making tonight is going to be a chicken yakisoba. This is not any type of real recipe because I made it up one day. And this is just kind of the way that I do it, and I've always kind of liked it, so I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. So first I'm just going to go through, I've already cut all my fresh ingredients, so I don't have to change knives, but I have changed cutting boards. This is my designated meat cutting board, and the reason why I do that is because there's less chance of cross-contamination, less chance that there's going to be any type of bacteria left on here, and it's going to affect something that's going to go straight into my mouth. It's got a little bit of fat on there that I don't want. There we go. Yep. And so this chicken knife just kind of did a quick microwave defrost on it. So one thing that I was going to do a video, and maybe I did and I just haven't shared it yet, but when we are trying to cut meat thin, which I'm not trying to do right now, you can use meat that is partially frozen to do that. And the reason why you do that is so that it doesn't give as much, and you'll actually be able to cut it much thinner. Jed is sneaking out and he's running into things. Woohoo! Alright. So, now my oil is going to get hot. Again, remember when we know it's hot is because the viscosity is going to change, but I can't yet smell the oil. I'm actually starting to smell it, so it's time to throw this stuff in. So just a little bit of avocado oil in there. Woo! That's it. Alright. I just want to get a little bit of a browning going on here. I want to make sure that's pretty decently cooked through. Alright, so while this is going, I'm just going to move this a little bit right now because I don't want it to scorch too much to the bottom here. You can see it's starting to do that already. And then I'm going to run you guys through my ingredients. Now, since I haven't shown it yet, I'm going to show you guys how I do nuts when I want to create like just crumbled nuts. I'm going to put them into a Ziploc bag, and it's really important when you do this that your bag is as low on air as possible. If you have a lot of air in there and you go to smash the nuts, what's going to happen is they're going to blow out the end of the bag because they move into the air there. And I'm going to use the non-pokey side for this, right? And I'm not going to be particularly thorough here. This is just for texture. Right. We're going to throw this in right at the end, okay? If you wanted to, you could throw it out, flip it over, and try to go through it on the back side, but I don't really care right now that it's that coarse. So to kind of take you through the ingredients that we have here, this is going to be my first set of ingredients, and so I've done my ingredients in 2 stages. So what you can't really see in there is there's diced up ginger. I want that as small as possible, and I did use a different technique than I've used in the past, which is cross chopping, right? And the way that you're going to cross chop is you're going to hold down your knife on one side and then move across your thing and just go up and down, and that's going to help you get a nice mince. Then there's some garlic in here and shallots. Shallots are more of a mild nut, or not a nut, it's a more mild onion, so it's not going to have as much bite as you would have in a normal one, but it actually has a pretty pleasant flavor. Now, I want to get this chicken to cook a little bit more thoroughly, so I'm going to take a lid. I'm just going to cover it for right now. This is just going to give it more kind of that baked kind of feeling now. So, as I mentioned in the pancake video, this is going to be a little bit of my sauce right here, and I've tossed a little bit of cornstarch in here, and I'm going to start to mix that up a little bit. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want to make sure that any type of flouring or cornstarch or any type of thickening agent that I'm going to be using in my end product is well incorporated into a fluid, because otherwise it's going to create clumps that it's not going to integrate really well into your final product. For our sauce today, now normally I would be using a rice vinegar, but I don't have any. And for me, you know, I've said it in a couple videos now that I don't tend to add initial seasoning, so I'm going to be using a low sodium soy sauce rather than a regular soy sauce. And the reason for that is just because, for one, regular soy sauce is just overwhelmingly salty to me. And then we'll be using fish sauce. Now, fish sauce is one of those ingredients that is super integrated into Thai cooking specifically. And then we'll just be using regular white vinegar. And I think I'm out of it. Normally I would toss some toasted sesame oil in at the very last minute for this type of dish, it's just going to really bring everything nice together, and just give it a nice good finish there. And so, going on to the vegetables that we actually have in the bowl there, we didn't get all the way to that. So the vegetables that are in that bowl tonight is we are using bell peppers that I've just put into little squares, jalapenos, bok choy, mushrooms, and I think that's it for tonight. So it's just a small variety. You can throw whatever vegetables you want into it, but the reason why they're in a separate bowl than these ingredients is these ingredients I want to have them incorporate into the sauce and actually be pungent within there, whereas these I want to cook them as little as possible, if that makes any sense. So the thing that people get wrong about vegetables is they overcook them, and so if they start getting too soft and they start getting mushy, then they're not pleasant to eat. So you actually want to have a little bit more of that fresh bite in there. A note on bok choy is that before you clean them usually, or anything that's going to be in a bunch like this, you don't want to clean them and then cut them, you want to cut them then clean them. And the reason why is that this tight binding here is going to allow all that dirt to kind of stay in there. And so you're going to have a much thorough cleaning if you cut then clean. So yeah, let's go ahead and check on this. These are the yakisoba noodles I'm using tonight. You can get dried soba noodles as well from the grocery store. Better yet, get them from an Asian market. So we've got probably pretty good on the chicken here. If you see, if I break that one through, it still looks wet on the inside, but it's not pink. And that's probably good enough for now because it's going to continue to cook as we start to throw in our other ingredients. And this is me showing my strength, fighting against this bag that I cannot open. And I'm going to use all three, right? So, just so that there will be leftovers. Drop it right in there. And that water that's come out of the chicken and whatnot, that's going to help hydrate these noodles and get them nice and loose here. And then I'm going to start throwing in my sauce. And that's, again, it's going to start to flavor these noodles. And if you want to, if you're worried about like putting too much vinegar or sodium in there, you can add water to this to get this to break up a little bit more. So I'm going to try to get these down to the bottom a little bit. And I'm going to add just a little bit of water here. And now, generally speaking, I would say if you were to measure this, it'd probably be somewhere between 1/4 to 1/2 cup of soy. And then maybe a little bit more on the vinegar, so because that's going to give it that nice tang. So we've got kind of that salty, and now we've got a little bit more of acid, and then the fish sauce is really going to give it like that kind of pungent flavor. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more hesitant about the tossing in my Thai chilies this time. Normally, I don't use jalapenos in the recipe, so this is just Jack, can you tell me what this even is? It's just chili flakes.
Yeah, right.
Right, but it's, yeah, Thai chili flakes, but it's, you could probably use the same types that you would use on your pizzas or whatever, of just regular dried chili flakes. Alright, and I'm going to actually add to this part, just so it doesn't caramelize too much, I'm going to add a spoonful of brown sugar. This is just going to balance out that, that high acidity and saltiness. I didn't even know where the lid went to that. There it is. Right. And once these noodles start to separate on their own, then I know that we're kind of ready to start throwing our veggies in. And since we're at this stage, I can't actually throw these guys in because again, this is going to be more flavor stuff, and I want that ginger to soften. So I want it in a little bit on the earlier side. So ginger, garlic. You can see that garlic is actually very coarsely chopped. I didn't bother to really mince it. And it's going to be hopefully well enough cooked in here that it's not going to require too much mincing. Now, you're not going to have to cover as much as I am if you're using a gas top stove because the heat's going to actually come around this mock wok more than this one does. But I do find it actually does work better on this one to use the larger size, even though there's not the contact there. That heat's still coming up around the side and helping it cook a little bit more. So, all right, and we'll be back in a second. Alright, so we can see now that my noodles are actually pretty loose now. So now I can start tossing in my veggies. So, same deal. Just going to toss all these guys in, and yes, this is going to look really full now. Oh, I didn't mention the mushrooms. There are mushrooms in there. I'm using basically baby portobellos, but you can use regular portobellos, you can use cremini, you can use shiitake or whatever you like. Okay, so I don't have enough moisture content on the bottom, so I'm feeling it starting to stick a little bit, so I'm going to add a little bit. And again, if you taste the noodles or something in here and you're like, okay, that doesn't have quite as much flavor as I want it to, then you can always add more as you go along. Oh, no, I got it. That's fine. Alright. And since I'm using like these whole big ass leaves of bok choy, which I guess I should have cut them smaller, it's getting really full and a little bit cumbersome here, but that's alright. So, just gonna put the lid back on this and let that soften just a little bit. And I'm only gonna do it for like a couple minutes, and then I'll add the rest of my sauce here. So your cornstarch and whatnot will have a tendency to kind of separate a little bit in this pan. When it goes in, you want to be very, very mindful that you're really mixing really well, because the bottom of the pan is going to be really hot, and it's going to have this tendency to go to the bottom of the pan and just scorch down there. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't put it in until the last minute here, is so that we're not fighting that the whole time that we're cooking this. Alright, so you can see that like I'm starting to get this kind of wiltiness on my bok choy. That's about where I want it. I don't want to go too much further than with it because bok choy, especially when it gets overheated, will have this tendency to become bitter. And I don't want mushy bell peppers or jalapenos or anything in there. So we're pretty much where we want to be on that. I'm going to turn my heat down because that's going to hopefully help me not completely scorch this, and I'm going to move off the heat for a second. Right, so I'm going to toss my cornstarch mixture in, and this is just going to help the sauce kind of stick to the noodles. But it's really important as we're doing this that we're really working to incorporate this and really work that bottom so it doesn't stick to the bottom. I want it to kind of really incorporate to all that loose sauce that's in there and get it thicker, because that's just going to help it to kind of stick to everything. And to kind of brighten this up a little bit, I'm going to use a little bit of white pepper. Careful, it's really easy to go kind of overboard on this. And white pepper, like this is the pepper that really, really makes you fucking sneeze. So, yep, there, that is. I'm not going to sneeze. I promise you I'm not going to sneeze, not going to do it, not going to do it. Alright, so move this back over here since it's now hopefully a little bit more integrated, and just use that heat to kind of cook that back up. And now I'm going to taste a noodle, and noodle, chicken, whatever you have, and just see how spicy that's become. Because again, those jalapenos, I left the seeds in and everything, so they have a real tendency to kind of boom and overpower if we're not careful. It doesn't seem like we've added too much heat to it. It's a little bit on the sour side today, so I might actually throw a little bit more brown sugar into this to kind of balance it out. And I'm just going to put in like 2 pinches of this Thai chili powder and incorporate that in. Notice that I'm always starting my movement by scraping the bottom, right? I want to break apart anything that's starting to adhere to the bottom, because that is the hardest part about any type of thing like this, where it's where you're using a thickener, is you really don't want it to scorch the bottom. It's going to make a mess, but also when it starts to caramelize down there, it's going to start to add like that flavor to it, and I don't really want that. So another tablespoon of brown sugar or so. And you know, I know that you're like, oh, you're adding sugar to it, but if you think about it, like this is probably 4 servings or so in here. That's really not that much sugar overall. And now my very last ingredient, in this case we're using cashews. I usually use peanuts, but variety. The thing about cashews that you want to be careful about is you don't want to be eating cashews on a regular because they don't break down into the same little bits as other nuts do. And they can have this tendency to basically become shards in your stomach. So, you know, a little bit is fine, but if you're eating them on a daily basis and you're eating a lot of them all the time, you can have gastrointestinal issues that come up from that. So, you know, vary them up with other nuts. You know, I haven't had cashews in months, so we should be good here. So, that's pretty much the dish. Yeah. I don't know that, normally at this point, guys, if I'm going to be using a toasted sesame oil, which if I had it, I would use it right now, because that really is like the thing that really makes this dish spectacular. But this is the time to add it in, because just like truffle oil and that type of thing, it has a tendency for the flavor to get cooked out. So you want to put it in early or very late on, so that you don't have that opportunity for it to get cooked out. Now, if you wanted to have this in kind of more of a Chinese style, you could use molasses instead of brown sugar. You can use Chinese five spice in this. Again, this is not any cultural significant dish here, right? This is kind of a blend between like yakisoba or Asian noodle with kung pao chicken, which, as my Chinese brother has told me many times, kung pao does not exist. That's not a real Chinese dish. It could come out of another culture, but it's not Chinese. So yeah, and this is, in my opinion, it's closer to a kung pao chicken than it really is anything else. So this is really like white people Asian cooking here. So enjoy that, guys. It is definitely one of the more filling dishes that I make. So a little goes a long way. And again, it's such a big batch that there's going to be leftovers for days, and I'm pretty sure you're going to like it. So enjoy.